Every night of your life, something happens to you that you have never been able to explain. Not sleep. Something inside sleeps. There is a moment, and you have experienced this thousands of times, where you are still aware, still thinking, still present, and then you are not. Not gradually. Instantly. One moment you exist in this room, in this body, in this life, and the next moment, something else is happening entirely. Where do you go? Not your body. Your body stays in bed. Where does the part of you that is aware, the part that is experiencing this video right now, where does that go? Science calls this the hard problem of consciousness. They have named it. They have written thousands of papers about it. They have not solved it. But a clay tablet, excavated from the ruins of Nippur in 1903, describes the answer, in clinical detail. And what we find at the end of this investigation, in the final section of that tablet, changes the meaning of everything that comes before it. Stay with me. The tablet is catalogued as UM 29-16 229 in the Penn Museum collection in Philadelphia. It was pulled from Nippur as part of the final University of Pennsylvania excavation season. It was classified on arrival as a fragment of a longer religious composition, partially damaged, lower priority. It went into storage. In 2011, a researcher named Dr. Francesca Rochberg, a historian of Babylonian astronomy and science at UC Berkeley, one of the most respected scholars in her field, was compiling a survey of scientific and empirical passages embedded within Sumerian religious texts. She was specifically looking for moments where Sumerian scribes switched from theological language to technical language within the same document. She found UM 29-16 to 29, and she found what she later described in a footnote of a 2013 paper published in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies as, quote, an anomalous passage of unusual empirical character embedded within standard liturgical framework, the full implications of which fall outside the scope of this analysis. Outside the scope of this analysis. That is the academic equivalent of saying, I found something I am not ready to address. The passage she flagged describes the moment of sleep onset, not symbolically, mechanistically. The scribe identifies a specific transition point, a threshold, that human consciousness crosses every single night. And he describes what is on the other side of that threshold, not heaven, not the underworld, not a spiritual realm, a layer, a specific, structured layer of existence that runs parallel to waking reality, and that your consciousness enters the moment it leaves the waking state. And the tablet names it, and the name it gives matches, with a precision that should not be possible across 4,000 years, the name that a group of theoretical physicists at Princeton University independently arrived at in 1957. We are going to get to that, but first, let me show you exactly what the tablet describes at the moment of sleep onset, because this is the evidence that changes everything. The Sumerian term for the transition point is Kurnu gi akalam ma, which translates, and this is a composite reading from 3 separate Assyriologists, including Dr. Rochberg, as the crossing from the land that returns to the land that does not return. The land that returns is the waking world, the world you come back to every morning. The land that does not return is not death. The scribe is specific about this distinction. He explicitly separates this crossing from the crossing that happens at death. This is a temporary crossing, a nightly crossing, into a land from which you come back, but which does not itself come back with you. It stays where it is. It exists continuously. Your consciousness visits it every night and leaves it every morning. But the land, that parallel layer, never stops existing. It is there right now, while you are awake, running alongside this moment, unreachable while you are conscious, accessible only through the crossing that happens every night, automatically, whether you choose it or not. And that is only the first thing the tablet says. Now hold that thought, because what I am about to tell you next is where modern physics enters this conversation in a way that has no comfortable explanation. In 1957, a physicist named Hugh Everett III submitted his doctoral thesis at Princeton University. His thesis proposed something that the physics community initially rejected almost completely. He called it the relative state formulation. We know it today as the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. The core proposal is this. When a quantum event occurs, when a particle is observed and collapses from superposition into a single state, it does not actually collapse. Both states continue to exist, in parallel, in branches of reality that are equally real, equally present, and running simultaneously alongside each other. Every moment, reality branches. Every branch continues. None of the disappearances. They simply become inaccessible to each other, running in parallel. The land that does not return, that exists continuously, that runs alongside this moment. Everett did not read Sumerian tablets. He was doing quantum mechanics. He arrived at the same structural description of reality. Parallel layers, continuous existence, inaccessibility while conscious in one layer, using mathematics. The Sumerian scribe arrived at the same structural description using observation. Both descriptions use different vocabulary for the same architecture. A parallel layer that exists continuously alongside the waking world, accessible through a specific crossing. That happens every night. Now here is where the tablet goes further than Everett, because Everett's theory describes the parallel layers as existing. The Sumerian tablet describes what your consciousness does when it enters one of them. The scribe writes that during the crossing, during the sleep state, consciousness does not wander randomly through the parallel layer. It goes to a specific location within it, a location determined by what the tablet calls Nam Lugal Zu, your personal sovereignty. Your personal sovereignty. In Sumerian administrative and legal texts, Nam Lugal refers to the authority and accumulated identity of a ruler, the total of their decisions, their relationships, and their history. Applied here to every person, it means the accumulated record of who you are. Every experience, every decision, every relationship, every moment of your entire life. That record, that full accumulated identity, determines where your consciousness goes in the parallel layer, every night, without fail. It goes to the location in the parallel layer that corresponds exactly to who you are, like a key finding its exact lock. Now I need to tell you what neuroscience has found about where the sleeping brain actually goes, because this is the part that nobody is connecting to the tablet, and the connection is too specific to be a coincidence. In 2019, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin published a landmark study in Nature Neuroscience. The study used simultaneous EEG and fMRI monitoring, measuring both electrical brain activity and blood flow through the brain on subjects during REM sleep. What they found challenged the existing model of what REM sleep actually is. During REM sleep, the brain does not simply replay memories from the day. It activates specific autobiographical memory networks. Specific, not random. The brain during REM sleep accesses the deepest layers of long-term autobiographical storage, the networks that encode who you are, not just what happened to you recently. It does not shuffle through recent events. It goes straight to the core identity record, the Nam Lugal Zu, the accumulated personal sovereignty, the full record of who you are. And it goes there consistently, across all test subjects, with a precision in targeting these networks that the Max Planck team described as, quote, more structured than any existing model predicted. More structured than predicted. The sleeping brain goes somewhere specific, determined by accumulated identity. Every night, exactly as the tablet describes. And that is only the second thing the tablet tells us. Because the third section of UM 29-16-229 is the part that Dr. Rochberg described as falling outside the scope of her analysis. The part she found and chose not to pursue. The part that changes the meaning of everything that came before it. What happens when you are there, in the parallel layer, accessing the core identity record? The scribe describes it with a term that appears in only one other known Sumerian text, a fragmentary wisdom text from Ur, where it is used in a single damaged line that scholars have never fully translated. The term is Galzu Dimma, which translates as the great shaping knowing. Not the knowing that receives, the knowing that shapes. The scribe is describing an active process, not passive storage of memories during sleep. Active reshaping. The consciousness, in the parallel layer, is accessing its full accumulated identity and doing something with it. Restructuring, adjusting, making changes that then return with the body when it wakes. Changes to who you are. Made in a place you cannot consciously access. During hours you cannot remember. Every single night. Now, here is what makes this extraordinary. In 2017, the journal Science published research from the University of California, Berkeley, led by neuroscientist Dr. Matthew Walker. Walker's team demonstrated that the emotional content of memories is selectively modified during REM sleep. Not just stored, modified. Traumatic or emotionally charged experiences, when processed during REM sleep, are returned to the waking brain with their emotional intensity reduced. The memory remains. The pain attached to it is partially removed. The brain literally edits who you are while you sleep. The Galzu Dimma, the great shaping knowing. Not passive storage. Active editing. Of your identity, your fears, your wounds, your emotional architecture, being adjusted every night by a process running in a parallel layer that your waking consciousness never directly experiences. And here is the detail that should make you stop completely. You do not authorize this process. You do not choose what gets edited. You do not remember it happening. You wake up slightly different from who you went to sleep as. Every single morning. Your identity is being shaped by something running in a layer you cannot access while awake. Described in a tablet, 4,000 years old. Confirmed by a neuroscience lab in 2017. Now here is where I want you to actively think, not just listen, because this is the question this tablet is actually asking. If your identity is being shaped every night in a layer you cannot observe, who is doing the shaping? Is it autonomous? A biological self-repair mechanism? Is it something structural about the parallel layer itself? The architecture of what Everett called the branching reality? Or is the tablet's framework, the Nam Lugal Zu, the personal sovereignty record, the Gal Zu Dimma, describing something that operates with intention? Something that knows what you need to become next? I am not going to tell you which answer is correct. I am going to tell you that the Sumerian scribe who wrote UM 29-16-229 clearly believed the shaping was not random, and that every morning you wake up is evidence that it happened again last night. Something shaped you, while you slept, while you were gone. In a place that the tablet describes, modern physics theorizes, and neuroscience documents. And you came back, slightly different, ready to be shaped again tonight. This is the moment I want to hear from you directly. I want to ask you something personal, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments below. Have you ever woken up from sleep knowing the answer to something you went to sleep confused about? A problem solved overnight. A decision that was unclear the night before, but obvious in the morning. A relationship or a feeling that had shifted while you weren't consciously working on it. If that has ever happened to you, and I believe it has happened to almost everyone watching this, write it in the comments. Just one sentence describing what changed overnight. Not a theory about why. Just what happened. Because what you experienced is not a coincidence. It is the Galzu Dimma, the great shaping knowing, documented in a Sumerian tablet, confirmed by UC Berkeley, and experienced by you, in your own life, more times than you can count. Your comment might be the most important thing someone else reads today. I read every single one personally, and I will be replying below this video. And if this is the kind of history that makes you see your own life differently, subscribe to the Lost Codex. This channel exists for the people who want the real record, not the comfortable version. And every week, we open another document like this one. The people who subscribe are the ones who are here when it happens. Now here is the final section of the tablet. The part that Dr. Rochberg described as falling outside the scope of her analysis. The part I told you at the beginning of this video would change the meaning of everything that came before it. The last surviving lines of UM 29-16 to 229 describe what happens when the crossing goes wrong. When the Galzu Dimma fails. The scribe names a condition, a state where the consciousness attempts the nightly crossing but cannot complete it, cannot fully enter the parallel layer, cannot access the full identity record, cannot undergo the shaping, and returns to the body without the process having run. He describes the result in terms that are uncomfortable to read, even in translation. A person who undergoes this repeatedly, according to the tablet, begins to fragment. The accumulated identity record, the Nam Lugal Zu, begins to lose coherence. The shaping that was supposed to happen accumulates as unfinished work. The person wakes each morning not slightly improved, but slightly less integrated than the night before. The scribe calls this state Ninda Nuzu, the one who does not eat the bread of knowing, and he describes it, in the most clinical language in the entire tablet, as a condition from which recovery becomes progressively harder. With each night it continues. Now I need you to understand what modern sleep medicine has documented about this exact condition, because the convergence here is the most specific in the entire tablet. In 2013, researchers at the University of Wisconsin published research in Science demonstrating that during wakefulness, synaptic connections in the brain strengthen continuously. During sleep, specifically REM sleep, they are selectively pruned. Excess connections are removed. Noise is reduced. Signal clarity is restored. The brain, during sleep, performs what the researchers call synaptic homeostasis, restoring balance, restoring coherence. When this process does not occur, when the crossing fails, when REM sleep is disrupted or absent, the synaptic connections accumulate without pruning. The signal degrades. The coherence decreases, and the person experiences what the Wisconsin team described as, quote, progressive cognitive fragmentation with increasing difficulty in restoration. Progressive cognitive fragmentation with increasing difficulty in restoration. The one who does not eat the bread of knowing. Ninda Nuzu, written by a Sumerian scribe in 2100 BCE, documented by a neuroscience team in 2013. The same condition, the same progressive nature, the same increasing difficulty in recovery. And this is what changes the meaning of everything that came before it in this video. The parallel layer, the land that does not return, is not optional. It is not a spiritual experience for people who believe in such things. It is a biological requirement. a structural necessity. Your consciousness is not designed to function without nightly access to the parallel layer, without the shaping, without the pruning, without the Galzu Dimma. The Sumerian scribe who wrote this tablet was not describing something supernatural. He was describing something as fundamental as eating or breathing, a process so essential that its absence produces measurable, documented, progressive deterioration. That is what the final section of UM 29-16-2-229 says, that the crossing is not a mystery to be wondered at. It is a requirement to be understood and respected and protected every night, without exception. UM 29-16-229 is in Philadelphia. The parallel layer, according to Hugh Everett's mathematics, is running right now alongside this moment. The Galzu Dimma ran last night, while you were asleep, while you were gone. It will run again tonight, shaping who you will be tomorrow. And somewhere in the gap between what you went to sleep as last night and what you woke up as this morning, that is where the tablet's description and the neuroscience and the physics all point. To something real, running in a place you cannot see while you are awake, doing work you cannot observe, that you could not survive without. The Sumerians wrote it down. They pressed it into clay, so it would survive long enough for someone to understand it. We are understanding it now. Tell me in the comments what changed for you overnight. The problem that solved itself, the decision that became clear, the feeling that shifted while you slept. One sentence. I want to read it. And I will be responding below. Subscribe to the Lost Codex, because next week I am covering the Sumerian tablet that names the specific mechanism the Galzu Dimma uses to make those changes. The biological structure inside your neurons through which the shaping process operates. And a 2023 Nobel Prize-winning discovery that accidentally confirmed it. Same finding, different century, same clay. The video on your screen right now connects directly to today's discovery. Watch that first. Then come back here tonight, after the crossing. You will understand it differently in the morning.